The rain hammered against the windows of Carnegie Hall as Sarah pushed her cleaning cart down the empty corridor. It was 4 a.m. The smell of wax and detergent lingered in the heavy air of the silent theater. Her footsteps echoed on the polished marble floor, breaking the stillness of that temple of music that, during the day, overflowed with elegant people and sublime melodies. But at that hour, Carnegie Hall belonged to her. Sarah had worked there for 15 years. She scrubbed the dressing rooms of world-famous artists, waxed the stage where virtuoso pianists played for sold-out crowds, polished the mirrors that reflected fine dresses and glittering jewels. She was invisible, just another janitor, erasing traces of a world she would never belong to. Life had been kind to Sarah. Orphaned at 10, raised in foster homes in the Bronx, she never had the chance to study music, though the sound of a piano had fascinated her since childhood. She carried a faint memory-free lessons at a community center, a young and patient teacher who once told her she had talent. But that had been so long ago. Another life, almost a forgotten dream. That dawn, however, something felt different. As she passed the half-open door of rehearsal room B, Sarah heard a strange sound. It wasn't music. It was something between a moan and a sigh. She hesitated. Maybe it was just the wind pressing against the old windows. But then she heard it again. She pushed the door open slowly. The room was shrouded in shadows, lit only by the orange glow of the streetlights outside. And there, sitting on the floor, leaning against a grand Steinway piano, was a man. "Sir?" Sarah called out, startled. "Are you all right?" He didn't answer. He just stared at his own hands, as if he didn't recognize them. He was barefoot, wearing faded blue hospital scrubs, an identification bracelet around his wrist. His gray hair was disheveled, his eyes lost. Sarah approached carefully. "Did you escape from a hospital? Are you hurt?" When he finally raised his face, she saw tears silently running down his cheeks. I don't know," he murmured hoarsely. "I don't know who I am. I don't know why I'm here. I just know I need to be near this piano." Sarah's heart tightened. She had seen homeless people sneak into the theater before. She always led them out gently, sometimes offering coffee or a few dollars. But there was something different about this man. Something in his eyes, a dim brilliance, a deep, unspoken pain. "Let me see your bracelet," she said, kneeling beside him. He lifted his arm mechanically. On the tag, it read Patient 471, Psychiatric Ward, Bellevue Hospital, escaped on 0312. Sarah swallowed hard. A psychiatric patient. A fugitive. She should call security, that was protocol. But something stopped her. "How did you get in here?" she asked softly. He pointed toward a side window, slightly open. I don't remember coming in. I just remember walking. Empty streets. The rain. And then I saw this place. And felt I had come inside. Like something was pulling me. Sarah looked at the piano, then at his hands. Large hands. Long fingers. Hands of a pianist. "Do you play the piano?" she asked, not knowing why. He looked down at his hands as if seeing them for the first time. I don't know. I can't remember." A heavy silence filled the room. Sarah knew what she should do: call security, return the patient to hospital, and get back to work. But something greater stopped her. Maybe it was the pain in his eyes. Maybe it was a memory of her own childhood when she too felt lost and invisible. "Listen," she said, resolute. "I'm not going to turn you in right now. But I need to know, are you dangerous? Would you hurt anyone?" He shook his head quickly. "No, I would never hurt anyone. I'm just lost. Completely lost." Sarah sighed deeply. "All right, stay here. It'll bring you some clothes, something to eat. But you must stay quiet, okay? If security finds you, they'll take you away." She returned 20 minutes later with a maintenance uniform, a sandwich, and a bottle of water. She helped him change, hid the hospital clothes. "For now," she said, "you're just another night maintenance worker. If someone asks, say you were called in to check the piano. Got it?" He nodded, still confused but grateful. Throughout the night, while Sarah cleaned the theater, the man stayed in the rehearsal room. She came back every now and then to check on him. And during one of those times, as she opened the door, Quietly, she froze. Music. Not just any music. Chopin. Nocturne Op. 9 No. 2. Played with such delicacy, precision, and emotion that the hairs on the back of her neck stood on end. Sarah stepped into the room, speechless. The man sat at the piano, eyes closed, fingers gliding across the keys as if alive on their own. Tears streamed down his face as he played, though he seemed unaware. He was completely lost in the music. When the final note faded into silence, he opened his eyes slowly and looked at his hands, stunned. I played, he whispered. I didn't know I could play. Sarah trembled. You don't just play, she said softly. You play like a master. And then she realized those hands, that posture, that way of tilting his head as he played. It was impossible, but, my God, she breathed. I know you. Sarah ran to the administrative office of Carnegie Hall. She searched through old files, framed posters, and photos on the walls until she found it. A poster from 5 years earlier. Maestro James Morrison benefit recital sold out. The man in the photo wore a tuxedo, smiling elegantly at the camera. The same face. Younger, healthier but unmistakably him. James Morrison, one of the most celebrated pianists in the United States. He had performed in the world's grandest halls, the Sydney Opera House, the Royal Albert Hall, La Scala in Milan. He had played for presidents, royalty, and packed audiences. A living legend. Sarah vaguely remembered reading something about him years ago, an accident. A breakdown. The famous pianist had disappeared after a nervous collapse. Some said he was hospitalized. Others whispered he had taken his own life. But no one really knew. She ran back to the rehearsal room. James, she called, breathless. Your name is James Morrison. You're a pianist, one of the greatest in the country. He looked at her, confused. James, he repeated, testing the word. James? Yes. Look, I brought a photo. She showed him the poster. He studied the picture for a long time, touched the face in the photo, then his own. That's me? He murmured. But I don't remember. I don't remember any of it. Sarah searched her phone and found old articles. Pianist James Morrison suffers breakdown during concert. Maestro hospitalized after nervous collapse. Family remains silent about pianist's condition. She read aloud. It says, you had a breakdown in the middle of a concert. You suddenly stopped playing, began to cry, couldn't continue. You were taken to Bellevue Hospital with severe depression and psychological trauma. Your wife, she requested permanent hospitalization. That was 3 years ago. James held his head in his hands. 3 years I was there for 3 years? So it seems, she replied softly. He stood up abruptly, restless. But why? Why did I break down? What happened to me? Sarah kept scrolling, and then found something that froze her blood. Tragedy strikes pianist James Morrison. 12-year-old daughter dies in car accident weeks before fatal concert. Her throat tightened. James, you lost your daughter. Emma, she was 12. She died in a car accident just weeks before your last concert. Silence filled the room. Then James collapsed not in tears, but into something worse, a hollow emptiness. I had a daughter, he said, voice drained, and I don't remember her. I can't remember her face. Her voice. Nothing. In the following days, Sarah hid James inside Carnegie Hall. During the day, he stayed locked in a storage room in the basement. At night, when the theater closed, she took him to the rehearsal room, and he played. He played for hours Chopin, Beethoven, Rachmaninoff. Each note seemed to awaken a fragment of memory, a blurred image, a forgotten feeling, but never enough. One night, Sarah brought her phone and played old videos of him performing. They watched together. In the video, a vibrant James bowed before roaring applause at the Lincoln Center, his fingers alive with joy. I was happy, James whispered, voice trembling. I was whole. You still can be, Sarah said gently. He shook his head. Not without her. Not without my Emma. Sarah took his hand. Maybe you can't remember her with your mind, but your heart does. That's why you play. Music is your memory. James looked at her with new intensity. You've been so kind to me. Why? Why risk so much for a stranger? Sarah hesitated for the first time, feeling exposed, because I know what it's like to lose everything. And because you once taught me to love music, even if you don't remember. He frowned. I taught you? She nodded, tears in her eyes. 25 years ago. I was 7. You gave free lessons at a community center in the Bronx. Some charity program, I guess. I was one of your students, a dirty, skinny kid with no shoes. But you treated me like I mattered. James stared at her, searching his fading memory. You told me I had talent, that I could be great. You gave me hope. Sarah wiped her tears. Then one day you stopped coming. I heard you got a scholarship to Vienna, and your career took off. And I stayed. Foster home after foster home. I never studied music again. Life took me somewhere else. And you ended up here, he said quietly, cleaning the theater where I used to play. It's not your fault, she said softly. That's life. But when I saw you lying there on that floor, it felt like fate was giving me a chance to give back. You gave me hope when I was a child. Now it's my turn to give it to you. James suddenly pulled her into an embrace, and he cried for the daughter he couldn't remember, the career had lost, the simple woman who had saved him when the world had forgotten him. Sarah knew this couldn't go on forever. The hospital would look for him. The family, too. James needed real medical care. But she also saw how the piano healed him in a way no medicine could. What if she began one night, hesitant? What if you try to play in public again? James looked at her as if she had gone mad. I can't. Not after everything that happened. But you play here every night, she said. And it's beautiful. Here, no one judges me. No pressure. No memories. Sarah leaned closer. What if it was something small? Not a big concert. Just a moment. Something personal. She explained her idea. In a week, there would be a charity event at Carnegie Hall. There was always an open piano for donations. Anyone could sit and play. It wasn't official, just a quiet tradition. You could play there, she said. Just one song. No name, no announcement. Just play. James shook his head in fear. I can't. What if I freeze again? What if? It'll be there, she said softly. Right by your side. If you freeze, we stop. Simple as that. It took days for him to agree. But finally, he said yes, not for the music, but for Sarah, for the woman who risked everything for him. During that week, Sarah took extra care of him. She trimmed his hair, found better clothes, made sure he ate properly. Little by little, the broken man she had found on that floor began to recover his dignity. And every night he played. One evening, James stopped mid-piece. I remembered something. He whispered, What is it? Emma, my daughter. She loved the song Clair de Lune by Debussy. I used to play it for her to fall asleep. His hands trembled above the keys. I can see her, not her whole face, but her smile, the way she laughed when I make mistakes on purpose. Sarah touched his shoulder. It's coming back. Your memory's coming back. But James shook his head. I don't want it to, because if I remember her completely, I'll remember losing her. And I don't know if I can survive that pain again. But you already are, Sarah said softly. Every day, you're surviving. And music is your bridge to her. It's how she's still with you. James closed his eyes and started playing Clair de Lune again. This time, to the end, every note filled with beautiful sorrow, a longing beyond words. When he finished, Sarah was crying. At the event, James said, his voice steady for the first time, I'll play this one. For her. The night of the charity event arrived. Carnegie Hall was glowing a sea of elegant people, photographers, and laughter. In the corner, near the main hall's entrance, stood an old Steinway piano. No spotlight, no stage. Just the piano waiting. Sarah guided James through the crowd, his hat pulled low, a scarf hiding part of his face. Are you ready? She whispered. He nodded slowly. As he'll ever be. They waited until the crowd thinned. Then, when no one was watching, James sat at the piano. His fingers hovered over the keys, trembling. The noise of the room faded until all he could hear was his own heartbeat. And then he began to play. The first notes of Clair de Lune floated through the air fragile, like moonlight touching water. Conversation stopped. People turned. Something about that melody, that depth, that ache silenced the entire hall. For a moment, James forgot everything: the hospital, the pain, the empty years. He wasn't broken anymore. He was a father playing for his daughter again. Tears streamed down his face as he reached the final chord. When the last note faded, there was no applause, just silence. Then, slowly, the audience began to clap, soft at first, then stronger. Sarah was crying too, her hand over her mouth. And then through the crowd a woman appeared, elegant, dignified, older now, her eyes filled with disbelief and sorrow. "James," she whispered. He turned. Recognition flickered across his face, faint, fragile, but real. "Clara?" he murmured. She nodded, tears breaking free. "It's you, it's really you." Sarah stepped back, giving him space. Clara rushed to him and took his face in her hands. "I thought you were gone forever. They said you'd never recover. I didn't know where to look anymore." James trembled. "I don't remember everything, but I remember Emma. And the music." Clara sobbed. "That's enough, James. That's enough." For a long moment, they just held each other, two broken souls stitched together by loss, finding something that looked like peace. When the crowd realized who he was, James Morrison, the fallen pianist who vanished years ago, the story spread like wildfire. But James didn't care. He only cared about the warmth of the woman in his arms and the faint echo of his daughter's laughter in the music. Later that night, after everyone left, Sarah found herself alone on the empty stage. She sat at the same piano and touched the keys gently. One soft note, then another. James appeared behind her, smiling faintly. "Still playing, huh?" She smiled back, trying to. He sat beside her. "You saved me, Sarah." She shook her head. "No, you saved yourself. I just gave you a place to start again." He looked at her, eyes full of gratitude. "Do you know what I remember today? When you were a little girl, you used to play with your feet barely touching the pedals. You'd get angry every time you missed a note." Sarah laughed softly. "I can't believe you remember that." "I do now," he said. "Because of you." He stood up and offered his hand. "Play for me, Sarah, just once." She hesitated, then nodded. Her fingers found the same melody he had played earlier, Clair de Lune. And as she played, the soft light of the chandeliers reflected in her eyes. And for the first time, the music didn't sound like mourning. It sounded like rebirth. When she finished, James whispered, "Beautiful. Emma would have loved it." Sarah smiled, tears glistening. "Then maybe she's listening." James looked upward, eyes shimmering with both sorrow and peace. "Maybe she always was." He turned to Sarah. "Promise me something. Keep playing. Don't let the world silence you the way it silenced me." "I promise," she said. He smiled, and for the first time in years, it was real. Months later, a small article appeared in the New York Times. Former pianist James Morrison returns to music in a benefit concert for underprivileged youth. The event raised enough funds to open a free music program in the Bronx directed by his protege, Sarah Collins. In that program, among old instruments and new dreams, Sarah hung a small black and white photograph on the wall of a man at a piano, a little girl sitting on the lid, laughing. The caption read, "For Emma, the melody that never truly ended. FIM, the invisible man who made music live again."